the Junior Associate at CSI DDU, welcoming you all on behalf of our entire team of Computer Society of India, Student Branch DDU. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to each and every one of you for taking out the time to join us this afternoon. CSI is a group of technical enthusiasts who are willing to share knowledge and are curious enough to exchange the ideas on whichever is the fast emerging sector. Before starting the session, I hope that you all have a good internet connectivity. If you have any query or lack of voice, you can tell us in the chat section. We would like you to maintain the silence and the decorum of the session. Any kind of unwelcome intrusion would face the consequences. You will have the opportunity to hear from some of the brightest minds in the industry. We encourage you to actively participate in this event, share your thoughts, and engage in the discussions with our speakers and other attendees. As you all know, that this is the third season of the Achievers on the Line, where we will have an amazing lineup of accomplished speakers who will share their insights and experiences on a range of topics related to the tech industry. So today we have with us our DDU alumni, Khadija Sidpuri ma'am. She is currently working as a software developer at Bloomberg London, and she has also worked as an intern at Amazon. It's a pleasure to have her here sharing her experience regarding the off-campus interviews and her journey till now with us. She has completed her graduation at Dharamsi Desai University in year 2022. She has also been a part of MLH Fellowship. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to our session. So now I would like to hand over to Murtaza Mister, President of CSI DDU, and Pashwa Mehta, Vice President, to take the event further.
So, Khadija, I would like to give you a brief introduction of yourselves to our audience.
Okay, tough one. Okay, I'm Khadija Sidpuri. I was part of the 2022 batch at DDU, who I graduated last year, and since then, I've been working at Bloomberg since October. In college, I did a summer internship at MLH, as I mentioned. Post that, I did an internship at Amazon. I also wanted to. I thought I wanted to study more, do a master's, and that is something that I put a lot of effort into, but at the end decided not to go with. Just interesting thing about me. Apart from that, I am really, really passionate about backend development, data intensive applications. And if you want to ask anything about that, anytime.
Okay, so by now I think everyone present here know you. So now I would like to ask you that can you describe your 4-year college journey as a student of DDIT and how has DDU as a university helped you stand where you are today?
For really interesting. So in 2018, when I joined, I really did not think about what kind of career I want. It was a very, very random decision, which is something I would never suggest anyone to make. Luckily, it worked out for me. I thought that I landed in a field that was suited for me. But even then, for the first 3 years, I would say I had no passion whatsoever in learning or studying. I tried a lot to build enough passion, and that was a mistake as well, because uh, a lot of content around you is is very focused on passion and motivation. So you try to do that. You try to build passion, but if you don't have it, it doesn't happen. So what else can you do? Is not something I thought about for the first 3 years. But so those 3 years were pretty uneventful, except for the fact that I joined clubs. I joined DDU Connect and DSC, which is, I would say, a turning point at the end of 3 years. A lot of my decisions where I am today is because of the clubs that I joined, the people I met, I would say. The end of third year, I a few summer internship companies came to the campus, and I gave very, very terrible interviews. I was like, what am I doing with my life? And at that point, I was like, kuch karna hai. So I really I found MLH, which is also through a senior at a club. I was like, ये तो I have to really apply to this. It felt very unachievable for me. It's like नहीं इसमें तो form भरना है मेरे को बहुत लंबा सा form था उसका. वो भरा मैंने and other than that um, I was like ठीक है uh, like ये तो करना है. Somehow I got an interview, and I think that was because of a project that I was also working on at that time. As I mentioned, third year SDP project was a message broker system. Based on that, I wanted to build a multiplayer game called Pac-Man. That is the project that I demoed in my MLH fellowship. That is also a project that I had given a lot of effort into, and I think that is how I got the fellowship. I prepared a lot for the interviews as well because of the terrible interviews that I gave for the summer internship campus opportunities, and it ended up helping me a lot, learning from my mistakes. From there, it was an upwards journey of just working, even though you don't feel like it. So I thought about what I wanted to do. Masters at that point, at that time, that that decision was a masters. Like I want to study more. I want to go out to the US and masters kind. So I started preparing for that. GRE, IELTS, the whole package. And I applied for universities at the end of December 2021. Um, was it 2021? Yeah, around that. Which by which point my decision had changed. I no longer wanted to pursue masters, so I started applying for internships off campus and on not on campus as much because I wanted mostly to apply off campus. Um, I applied a lot, and that is when I realized that off campus is a entirely different ball game. You don't get enough. Re- you don't receive enough uh, because receive enough. What do you say? Responses. Yeah, but it's a numbers game. The more you apply, the more you learn how to apply. And at the end, I did get a few offers. And after that, Amazon came to the campus, uh, which I was only able to crack because of my experience applying to off-campus companies. So that was not a wasted experience at all. Nothing is ever a wasted experience in this field or any field whatsoever. Um, so that is how I credit most of my achievements to stuff that I pursued, but no longer pursue. Yeah, for example, masters. Applying for masters that taught me a lot. Applying off campus that taught me a lot. That is also one of the reasons I am here at Bloomberg today. Yeah, doing something that I actually like doing.
Okay, it was wonderful hearing that. Now, one of the most trivial queries you will ever hear. So, time management. How do you balance sessionals with your projects? And also, some people have a tinge of competitive programming. So, how to balance time? How about your approach towards time?
That is actually a very interesting question because I never felt like I managed my time very well. I I wasted a lot of time actually. But at the so I'm gonna be very honest about this. I hated working on assignments or studying about sessions, but that is something that you have to do. Once I stopped complaining about it, it's like nahi padna mere ko, nahi karni assignment is where I started saving most of my time because when you procrastinate on assignments or exams, it just stays in your head and you can't do anything else in that time. So if you just get it out of your headspace, then you have a lot of time. You save a lot of time just by doing that. And I use that time here or there to lead code. Lead code is my favorite platform for learning DSA. But even that, I wasn't doing very well, which I'll touch on later because I felt like competitive programming was important. Uh, it isn't actually, but I tried to optimize a lot of my learning towards contests instead of actually learning data structure. That was a mistake I made. Competitive programming is not important at all. Learning DSA is very important. Being able to solve algorithms on lead code or hacker rank places as such is important. It is a very good skill to have for cracking interviews. But that does not mean that you have to participate in coding rounds or increase your rating. Yeah, don't fall for that trap. I tried to increase my rating, and it felt very like I didn't learn anything. I was just doing it for the score. And you will find out hacks to increase your rating, but never hacks to increase your learning. So only do competitive programming if you really, really like it. There are people with me that really loved it, and that is why they were able to get the job. But for me, it was not that. I just learned enough to crack the interviews. Apart from that, I was working on building my resume, doing projects, as I mentioned. That is very interesting example of time management. If you do interesting projects in college as part of college assignments, you don't have to work on projects outside of college. You've saved a time there too. So don't work on useless projects is lesson number one. Don't don't do last day projects. Yeah, that is a mistake I've made. I've done that. I'm not trying to diss on anyone. I'm speaking about my own mistakes. Yeah. So if you do interesting projects, if you put time and effort into thinking about what kind of project you are going to make as a part of college assignments, you have saved a lot of time there as well. Where was I before this? Yeah, lead code. Um, and in lead code, you just have to really learn enough to crack interviews, which is, I would say, doing uh, around 300-ish problems from each, not from each, like picking on different data structures like arrays, um, arrays, arrays is one, trees, graphs, and you do 15 to 20 problems of different difficulty levels in each data structure topic. It's going to already make a lot of difference. And out and out and after you have done that, you can start solving other problems that lead code probably participate in some rounds now. But really, your priority should be to learn data structures and not think about coding rounds at all. That is my advice in lead code. Um, Outside of projects, yeah, projects is a very important part of development. You can also look into open source contribution. It is a very difficult uh, concept to grasp for a lot of beginners, as it was for me. But the more you look into it, the more you will learn about it. The more you will interact with other people outside of the college, you will find out what they are doing with their lives, and that is going to inspire you a lot. That is also one of the things that helped me a lot. It is indeed difficult to start in open source, but really it's going to have 100x return of your investment. You are going to be able to put that on your resume that you worked on a real world software, real world project, um, and you will interact with people outside of the college. You will get to learn a lot. That is a very different experience from just doing personal projects. The important thing here is that coding lead code will only help you in interviews. It won't help you get interviews. What will help you get interviews is your development experience, your profile, your resume, how much you have put yourself out there, how much of yours is on LinkedIn or other platforms like GitHub.
So, audience, you have two lessons over here. Accept your fate, accept BDIT, and accept all of its exams. Stop complaining. And the second lesson is make projects, not the crappy ones, not the one day ones, but invest your time in projects too. So that's the lessons from these questions. Fast for you, my question.
Yeah. So
Connection to that. Don't just Murtaza said invest your times in projects too. It's not a two. I would say it's almost mandatory.
yeah. So that was I was going to say that. Yeah. So now, Khadija, can you please brief in that did being part of clubs at our university proven useful at any phase of your life?
Very useful. I would say, even though we all know what happens at clubs in our universities, we are the people that have been part here, is that not everyone is as dedicated, and you don't actually get to do what you expected to do when you're in the club. That is what
Yeah.
I felt in Connect and DSC as well. But and it kind of takes away from the experience. You felt like, "Arey yaar, kidhar aa gayi main?" But when you meet people like you that want to actually do something with the club, interact with people in the college, you and that builds a very good network for you. Our college really lacks a good mentorship structure among students. We do not have one, um, I would say. But it's very important to find a good mentor and to mentor other people after you. You learn from their mistakes and you learn from their achievements. And I would not have found mentors if I did not join my club. I would not have been able to find people, interesting people among my juniors that I could mentor without clubs. And that is why clubs are very important. The other reason clubs are important is it helps you build a mindset of कुछ कुछ करना है वाला mindset. Uh, it helps you a lot with managing time too, because I've done a lot of stuff for clubs that I felt was not very important, because I kept thinking about how nobody cares about this. No student ever comes to those seminars anyway. I think you have all been through that at some point. But at the end, it was a really important lesson in time management, because you have to dedicate a lot of time to clubs if you actually are dedicated to it. Most people aren't in clubs and they don't do anything, which I think I don't want to diss anyone, but I think I've done that too a few times. But what I'm trying to say is that those experiences, the positive ones and the negative ones, they give you a lot to learn about, and a lot of people that are like you, and those people that you can learn from, those people that you can teach. The very important thing that it achieves is it builds a community among your college that you can reach out to. Yeah. When one person mentors someone else, and when you get mentored by someone, and think about them doing the same, you build a network of people mentoring. And yeah, you get the points.
So it was great hearing it. So you learn something new in every phase of your life.
Yeah.
So as open source we mentioned, so how was your open source journey map? So how did you get introduced to open source? What did you perform when you were in open source? And how did you reach out to people outside of our college? What was your month? How was it?
Okay, this was something that I found out because when I was part of DSC, a senior of mine told me about Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest is basically an open source event that takes place in every October, where the goal is to make four pull requests in repositories, open source repositories. Of course, people exploited that and made useless pull requests in Hacktoberfest too, but that's not my point. Yeah, so that was my first that was my first exposure to open source, and I was like, yeah, this is very interesting actually. And even though I could not do the four required pull requests, it felt very exciting to be able to contribute to real world software. And another reason I really wanted to look into MLH fellowship, the open source MLH has 3 tracks, and a project based track, an open source track, and something that is very similar to an internship. I chose the open source track where I was working on Forum. Forum is a community building platform. If you guys have heard about dev.to, it's a website where a lot of developer bloggers write their blogs at. So that is a platform that I contributed to. Post that, I started reading structure and interpretation of computer programs, which is something I'm going to talk about later. But the book has this language called Scheme. Scheme is a variant of Lisp, a very old language. I worked on an open source IDE that was that was developed for that language. That was a very interesting experience, because the language racket is not something that you are ever going to hear about if you don't actually read the book. Yeah. Other than that, I also contributed something in Go. Yeah. After that, I stopped, and I should not have. I want to look into it again, um, because even at Bloomberg, open source is a very important uh, thing. A lot of services in my company are based on open source softwares that our company actively contributes to.
Okay, that was nice hearing that. So, Khadija, as you mentioned that you choose open source program in MLH fellowship, and you contributed in for. So, can you brief more about that?
Yeah, so Forum was like a blogging platform. Um, I can actually no, let's not go into that. Anyway, so the idea of Forum is to be able to give communities a platform for blogging to just build their community. So forum is just like a template website. From that, if you want to make a college community for your college, for Dhamsi Desai University, you have to just go to the forum repo and see the steps for how you can host your own forum for your college, and then your college will have a website that students and faculties can post blogs on, uh, and host podcasts on, videos. Forum has a lot of features actually. uh, the development side of it, I worked on caching, I worked on RSS feeds, I worked on message queues again there too, job scheduling. Not, and that is also why I felt that open source is a really good experience, because in your regular personal projects, you do not have the time or the scope to implement all at once.
Can you get into MLS fellowship? What exactly is that, and what students can expect to get out of it?
Oh yeah, so as I said, has three tracks. Uh, the tracks are basically what you're going to be working on for 3 months of your fellowship. One is the project-based track, where you work on a very interesting personal project over the span of 3 months. And then there's the open source track, where you are given an open source organization where you're going to make contributions. I'd say that helped me a lot with breaking into open source, because if not for that, I would not have been able to see what kind of repo to contribute to, or what kind of software to what kind of contributions to make. It helped me learn a lot about that. And one is an externship track. Externship is similar to open source track, except uh, the fellows work on closed source software from companies. That is also a very useful experience, because companies expect more from you than open source maintainers. Open source maintainers generally do not expect a lot, because they are getting work for free basically. So they have lower expectations. So they are going to put less pressure on you. Whereas closed source companies, they actually kind of pay you a stipend. So uh, that, I think that's a very valuable learning experience as well, because when you can work in a high energy environment and not just something where nobody actually depends on you.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was
I didn't answer what you can expect out of it. What you can expect out of it is something that helps you learn and work with real world software, about helps you learn concepts that you would not otherwise in college, how to work in a real industry, and other develop a lot of development concepts as well. Other than that, it puts you in an environment with a lot of people that are similar to you, all students from different universities. You build a network, a community, which is the whole point of MLH. You realize that I realized that I've been living in a bubble my whole life, and a lot is possible with very little effort if you put effort in the right direction.
okay, great. So now, Khadija, everyone know that and has the mindset that Amazon and Google are great companies. So, what was your preparation process for the Amazon internship? What made you stand out with respect to other candidates?
Um, the first thing I would like to say is, when you said the great companies, Google, Amazon, when we hear about that, we
Yeah,
tend to self-reject ourselves. कि यार इसमें apply नहीं करना, I don't have a chance here. थोड़ी सी college से हो, मेरा resume नहीं मिलेगा. Don't do that. I did that and did not apply to Google Summer of Code, which is another thing that I've wanted to do since my first year. But because I self-rejected myself, I never actually applied to Google Summer of Code. I'll talk about more about GSOC later, but first on your question. Um, so when this is also something I stopped doing because of a senior of mine who told me everything is achievable if you really think about it, because you are a software engineer. What does Amazon want? What does Google want? They want a software engineer. You are already in the game, so just apply. Without applying, you won't even know if you had a chance or not. So just apply to each and every company that wants to hire. Okay, that's exaggeration. But the truth is that we are from a small college, and that is going to affect how much people view your resume. But the more places you apply to, the more places your resume is out at, the more people you get to reach out to. So the, that experience gives you more confidence. Okay, it also takes some confidence away when people do not apply to you. But my point is that eventually you're going to learn how to apply better, how to reach out to people on LinkedIn for jobs and internships. You're going to make mistakes a lot, and you're going to learn from them. And that is going to help you, in a way, prepare for the bigger companies as well. Amazon, for example, you asked me about my preparation. That was my preparation, applying to hundreds of companies so that I could learn from my application mistakes and the mistakes that I made in interviews. The two startups that I interviewed for summer interns, that I said that were very terrible interviews on my side. I learned those were very, very important learning experiences for me. I learned about all the mistakes that I'm making in the interviews, and that is how I passed the MLS fellowship interview. And all the mistakes that I made in applications later on in interviews helped me prepare better for Amazon. And before Amazon, I had two other internship offers from Trell and HackerRank, and and I was preparing for the algorithm interview for Trell and HackerRank. So I already had some preparation going on. So I didn't have to really prepare for Amazon separately. But if I had only applied at Amazon on campus and not all of those 50 other off campus companies, I would not have passed that out. I would not have passed that. I think that is what helped me stand out from everyone else. Like, I mean, that is a very prideful way of putting it. I don't want to put it like that.
After you gave multiple interviews, what were your process of reevaluating yourself? That what went wrong in that interview, and how I can get this better with the next interview?
I speak, even though I did not know an answer to a question, I was bluffing. Never do that. The interviewer is very experienced, much more experienced than you are. He's going to find out that you are bluffing. That was a mistake I made. And just fumbling with the answer, even though you don't know it. You just be honest about it. That, sorry, I don't know the answer, but I think it might be related to this. So you just talk about what you know and not talk about what you don't know. That is one thing. Um, this coming back to the time management question. If you if you if you treat vivas the same way you do interviews, you're going to learn a lot from that too. Because vivas maybe बहुत time pass करते हैं. I mean, I've done that too. But if you stop doing that and actually treat vivas like interviews, you can learn from your mistakes there too. That is another way I learned for my interviews. Another mistake I made was not preparing for the interview at all, being very confident. अरे ये तो हो जाएगा क्या ये C++ आता है मुझे, database आता है मुझे. I'm not going to prepare. Don't do that. Even though you are like an expert, you will need some preparation because the interview chalu, you are going to get nervous. There are going to be people around you that evaluate you. And another thing, no matter how much you prepare, you are going to get nervous in the interview. Even even to this day, I get nervous in interviews and meetings where I have to speak, even though no one is going to evaluate me. So वो expect करके चलना कि तुम nervous होने वाला. So you will have to manage that too. So you don't just black out in the interview.
Okay, mm, that's really great. So now can you brief that how did you demonstrate your skills and qualifications during the interview process? And what advice would you give to other students who are preparing for interview?
Sorry, I did not get your question.
Okay, let me repeat. How did you demonstrate your skills and qualifications during the interview process? And what
Mhm.
advice would you give to other students who are preparing for interview?
That's a very good question. A big part of interviews is that the interviewer may not ask you all the questions that you want to hear. He's not going to ask you क्या तेरे skills है बता मेरे को. You will have to find out opportunities to describe your skills. For me, that was the introduction part. I would talk about myself, my projects, and my interests. I would talk about some unique thing about that I've done. For example, my unique thing was data intensive applications, real time data management. That is not something that a lot of other people with me were doing. So I felt that it was unique, even though it has now become commonplace, which is a very good thing, a very good thing indeed. In anyways, you have to find opportunities to really stand out in front of the interviewer that I've done this. In For example, uh, when the interviewer asks, tell me what you learned from this project, is when you can really think about all the features that went into your project and explain them, even though the interviewer hasn't specifically asked for them. You you pick things in a project that you liked working on the most. For example, in a project you might have some CRUD features and some features where you worked on like synchronizing different services or sending data in real time. So at that point you want to talk about the most interesting part of the project and not the CRUD part. The interviewer is not going to really care about the things that did not take a lot of effort. uh, that is another important thing to think about, what you're going to how you're going to explain your work, because in interview में इतना time नहीं देते कि you can just keep talking and talking about it, which is also not a very attractive thing in an interview. I think that is something I'm doing right now too. I'm talking too much.
No, it's definitely fine. So we have something which I do. Let's have a look at it. Trading in trading line very much trending. And if we want to do that, what strategy do we need to follow?
Oh yeah, that is another important thing. So AIML is indeed very trending today. It was in my time too. Well, and I've learned ML because it was very trending. I tried to like it, but I did not. I tried to study it a lot, but I did not. So I ended up in the ML team at DSC, but I never actually liked ML. I would not say that it was a wasted experience at all, because at the end it did get that is what got me into DSC, where I met a lot of interesting people. But my point here is that don't gaslight yourself into liking what others like. Find your own niche. Do something that you like, because when you learn about something that you don't really have interest in, you're going to lose interest into learning anything else. That is what happened with me. um, but when you start learning about stuff that you like, for me that was back in real time, that that led me into a rabbit hole of everything else. First I started reading a book, and then I made a project, I applied to an internship, and I made more. I made that a very important part in my master's applications as well. My passion for real time data processing. uh, so what I'm trying to say is that explore everything. Try to dig into stuff when you don't know what you like. तुम 100 चीजें भी देखोगे तो भी you are going to learn something from everything. It's not like कुछ भी नहीं सीखा तुमने, which is something you realize 6 to 7 months later, that बहुत कम किया होगा तो भी that's a lot better than having done nothing. Once you
Great piece of advice.
Yeah.
You will continue with your speaking. Sorry.
So once you like get into like look into hundreds of not hundreds of things, but several interesting things, you are going to find something that interests you more than everything else. You might not find anything good, but you're going to find some things like, this is something that I can tolerate. This is not something that I absolutely hate. That is what I'm trying to get, which is also a way I chose my career actually. Like, do I like computer engineering? Not really, but can I tolerate it? Yes, I can. It's another mindset that you have to develop, is that you will not be necessarily passionate about everything, but you will have to find stuff that you can actually tolerate doing. I was never passionate about most things that I've learned, but I just went like, Arey yaar, theek hai, I can do this, I can tolerate this.
I can
And
exactly relate the case.
yeah, until you find the one thing that you are passionate about, which I did.
Definitely. So let's move on to the next one. So what was your approach towards job search process? How did you search jobs across the internet and how did you apply to?
So My job search was that when I was not really looking, I just got to know from my seniors about programs like Google Summer of Code and MLS Fellowship and such. So that is the only ones I applied to. At that point, I really was not trying to find summer internships. Or that was like a very dark time in my life. I was not passionate about anything. I was like, why am I here? What am I doing? But after I applied to those places, just because my seniors told me to, I felt like I should apply to other places, which is also the same time when some companies are coming to the campus for summer internships. I'm glad I applied to those two because of the terrible experiences I had interviewing. Uh, Not on their side, on my side, I was unprepared for the interview and I did a terrible job giving them. That helped me learn a lot. After that, I got the fellowship and I was like, this is very important. This is something that everyone should have a chance to do, summer internships. I'm going to talk more about that later. And I started applying to more companies for internships, for winter internships that I would do in my eighth semester. First, I was just looking on LinkedIn, and there's a website called AngelList. I'm going to type it. Sorry, AngelList, which has a lot of startups that are looking to hire. LinkedIn has a lot of startups that are looking to hire as well. You can find them on other platforms as well. Good internship opportunities. I'm going to type the name. So, Mentor Community is an app through which I found the trail internship. That is where I applied from. And then when you look into all of these platforms, you fall into a rabbit hole where you start finding out related content. So, for example, if you look for shoes on Amazon, you're going to start seeing ads of shoes everywhere. That is the same with LinkedIn and those other platforms. You're going to find related content from people that help others find internships, uh, that give interview advice. I through that I reached out to people that were working at companies. Like, hey, I'm Khadija. I would give them a brief introduction about myself. Like, are you looking to hire? Can you give me a referral? I found some Discord servers that could give you resume reviews, um, for example. That helped me a lot as well. It's stuff like this that helps you improve how you apply to companies. Referrals, how you reach out to people for referrals. So, do you guys know about referrals?
Yes, not a
Referrals is
that.
referrals is basically reaching out to people to refer you for a position at their company, um, which uh, which is an important skill to learn how to ask for referrals. Also, the Team Blind app. How can I forget Team Blind? Teamblind is Teamblind is another platform where it's an anonymous platform where people from different companies uh, post about their work. It's also a place where you can reach out to people for referrals and such. I reached out to someone for a referral for Bloomberg from Teamblind.
Okay, so surely we will think of, or we will do reference. So now, can you share some skills or experiences you gained during the internship that helped you land your current job offer?
Experiences during my internship. Yes, actually, my experience at my fellowship was like meeting people when I was just looking at what they were doing. Most of them were like on LinkedIn, had their own personal website set up. They were making posts on LinkedIn about what they are working on and the sessions that they hold at their colleges, the hackathons that they participate in. What I learned from that is that it's important to advertise yourself, uh, do stuff with substance, and put yourself out there. For example, if you did a really important project that you really like working on, but it's not on your GitHub, then what's the point? Uh, resume pe resume pe nahi hai. So why did you even like? I mean, of course you learn from it, but other people can't see that you put that effort into yourself. So the way you put yourself out on platforms like LinkedIn or GitHub or other blogging websites, your own personal website. Another reason why deploying an app you built is very, very useful for you. It's out there where other people can see, where other people can experience in real time what you have built. So that's something I learned from my fellowship, that putting yourself out there is important. I did try to post stuff on LinkedIn that was actually of substance, as LinkedIn has a lot of cancer content, so-called cancer content, that is not really of substance, and just people putting stuff for the sake of putting themselves out there. Don't do that. Actually, think about what you are putting yourself out, but not too much that you don't even do it. Yeah, people are not that judgmental. Just think about yourself. Think about whether this is something that you actually put effort into. Don't do stuff for LinkedIn. Do it for yourself. Think about no one else, nothing else. And in terms and experiences from Amazon, Amazon was a very high energy environment, much more than my fellowship. I had to develop at a very high speed than I did at my fellowship, which uh, which taught me a lot about time management, about communicating with your team members, what help you need, and where you are stuck, because that is important. When you're stuck, uh, you can't just expect help to arrive. You're going to have to reach out and say that ye nahi ho raha mujhse, but we really need to do this by tomorrow, so help me. And documentation was very important at Amazon. Documenting all your work or your errors for future people to refer to. That is something that helped me apply better to come to other jobs and to masters as well, my master's applications. There's
Okay.
the question in the chat. Could I look at
Yeah, sure. At what
that?
point
Yeah,
in your undergraduate journey one is capable to get the real life experience of coding? As we know that real life coding and the coding which we are learning in undergraduate has a vast gap.
yeah, that was the first instance was in Oktoberfest. It wasn't really what you would say a real world experience, because it was a personal project of someone else that they had open sourced. But regardless, I could look into something that I would not have otherwise for a personal project. It was based on a Python library for graphics, which would help visualize sorting algorithms. That was, I would say, my first real life experience. And because it was not a very large app with a lot of complex features, I could actually find the confidence to contribute to it. After that, my first experience was at my MLH fellowship, where I worked on Forum. That was a proper platform with 600,000 users. And how it was different from your regular personal projects was the amount of exposure you get to new technologies. For me, that was a lot of libraries in Ruby. Ruby is a language similar to Python. Learning about caching, RSS feeds, um, message queues, etc. There's another question: how much learning do we need for it? Yeah, that is another important. Um, don't try to learn without actually applying your knowledge. For example, when you're preparing for an interview through Lead Code and not actually applying to places, then that what's the point? Because you are preparing for an interview that you don't even have. So start applying simultaneously. You apply and then you prepare for your interviews. That also gives you more motivation. The most of my preparation that I've done in Lead Code was when I had an interview coming up and I was like, shit, I'm unprepared. I really need to prepare for this. So that is going to give you a lot of motivation. So that is how you do your learning. First, you apply yourself. You realize that you are not prepared for this, and then you learn. You now know what you are not prepared for. But when you have nothing coming up, you don't have an open source software that you want to contribute to, or an interview that you have to prepare for. Then you don't even know what you need to learn. Open source is a very wide field. A lot of tech is out there. C++, Python, Scala, whatever you want to do. But you don't like क्या क्या काम करोगे? You are going to get confused. What is the most important thing? So I first found out about Forum. उसमें क्या tech है? It has Ruby. It works on Ruby on Rails framework, which is not something I knew about. So I studied that. I learned about Ruby after I was forced into a situation where I had to contribute to Forum. So that is a very good way to learn new concepts because it puts you into a situation where you need to learn about it and not just have to learn because kuch karna hai, I have nothing else to do. And that was why also I think I lost interest in ML because I just learned it for the sake of learning it. Just क्योंकि trending था. That is the only reason I learned ML. And I didn't actually do anything of substance with ML, except, of course, I don't regret learning ML. It was a very good experience for me. But I didn't do anything of substance later with ML in my life.
So 24 carat advice right here. Put yourself out there
Yeah,
and learn as you need it.
yeah. Many students currently fear that before applying and don't apply. So yeah,
Yeah.
obviously.
You feel that you are unprepared to apply, and so
Yeah,
basically I'm not prepared. That is why I did not apply to Google Summer of Code. For those who have not heard of Google Summer of Code, it is like Humanist Fellowship, except uh, you know what you're going to work on before joining the fellowship. You put a proposal for a project in an open source repo. It's like I want to do this. This is how I'm going to do it. So at the point कि जब apply कर रहे हो तभी बहुत मेहनत लगती है उसमें apply करने में. It helps you. That is where a lot of learning happens. Just in the application, think about it. Just by applying, you get to learn a lot. You get to know about a lot of organizations and other people's. You can see other people's project proposals as well while you're applying in Google Summer of Code. That's something I didn't even look into because I felt like I was not prepared. Ye mat karna. That is I think one of my biggest mistakes. Don't self reject. That's even an earlier point.
So that's very much clear to the audience right now. So moving on to the next question. Can you describe a project or a task that you worked during your internship, which you didn't know until you didn't know anything about it? And how did you overcome that challenge? What was your process? You saw something, yeah,
Uh, Continue.
nah, yeah, like that you saw something and you were blank about it. So how did you overcome that challenge? What was your approach towards it?
Yeah. So the first thing I think uh, the first thing is to just look at the project. Uh, Start from the documentation of what the project does and how to set it up in your local machine. For example, when I started working at Forum, I was like, I'm going to look at the documentation, how to set this up on my local machine, and just get it running on my local machine. Documentation से कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है. If you have doubts even after reading the documentation, as when you reach out to your mentor, you will typically have a mentor in any kind of internship, and ask them ki how I'm supposed to do this. Um, Even after that, if your mentor is unable to help you, you ask your whole team. Um, yeah, basically asking other people is a very important part of working in teams. Uh, you And another important way to learn about projects, well-established projects, is looking at the source code. For example, if you have to work on one feature, you don't need to study the entire code base for it. You just find out where the feature is. You look at the source code for the feature and learn just about that feature. So you minimize the amount of learning you have to do by just looking at what's relevant to you now. जैसे पूरा project तो उनका कुछ there were thousands and thousands of files. You can't know all of it in one day. Don't try to even do that. Just just narrow the scope of learning that you have to do and then start working on it.
yeah. Can you tell us about time during your internship or job when you have had to adapt to a new environment or learn a new skills quickly, and how did you achieve?
It was during Amazon, I would say. It was my first experience where was expected to do high quality work. MLS fellowship, maybe I've done a lot of good work, but nobody expected me to do it. So that is kind of where the motivation does not arrive from. But Amazon may, because you had expectations on you, you were like you it tends to make you nervous. So that's already a new environment for you where you don't know how you're going to approach this. It kind of if you have heard about imposter syndrome, you just feel like you're not up to this task and you're not as good as everyone else. You have to overcome that, and how you overcome that is by talking to your team members about something, things that you don't know. Uh, People, I mean, I used to get nervous about even asking out for help. Well, कि ये बहुत stupid लगेगा क्या? Should I already know this? But don't do that. They are always there to help, and they have all been through the same stage. Your mentors and the people that are working with, and they are going to be very much willing to help you.
Okay, that's a great piece of advice. Now, can you describe the recruitment process at Bloomberg?
Bloomberg was first you fill out a job application. Of course, I found a job on the careers website, and I was like, I wanted to really just apply to it, but I tried to find someone to refer me, um, and I got someone to refer me through, sorry, through Team Blind. Um, After that, I applied. Uh, and in the application there were quite a few questions about about the projects that I've done, or something interesting about me. So those essay questions, those essay type of questions in applications are very important, much more important than you think. Especially it was at MLS Fellowship. So put some thought into that. If possible, try to get someone to review it for you, especially the grammar, if nothing else. Just don't write bad English. That's not a very good look. Um, uh, and after that, I got an interview call, which was on my phone, literally on my phone. I was like holding my phone because earphones bhi nahi the tab mere paas. And I did not want to get up to get earphones just to interrupt the guy. Um, and he asked me a question. Yeah, he asked me basic questions about introduction, interesting projects that I have worked on, or my internship experience at Amazon, stuff like that. And then we did a coding question. Post that, there was another interview. Usme bhi I had to work on a coding question, the kind of questions you see on Lead Code. Some people also get two questions in the span of one interview. It really depends on the interviewer, what they expect from you, and what kind of questions they want to ask you. For example, मेरे interview में I solved the question, but then he was asking me about how would you scale it, and if I add one more data point to it, then how would the problem change? And if instead of one feature there were a lot of features for the same problem, how would you solve that? Questions like that. सिस्टम डिजाइन के बारे में कुछ नहीं पता था मुझे, और हम तो अप्रोच एन इंटरव्यू. So I try to look at other system design interviews on YouTube. I read books on system design, designing data intensive applications, and some croaking system design books, which also made me think about, yeah, इसमें कितने सही project ideas है, why I didn't do this in my college. Yeah, I will send a link to those books later for your own project ideas. Yeah. So basically उसमें बहुत मेहनत की थी मैंने system design वाले interview में. I read 3 books in the span of 10 days. क्योंकि yeah, as mentioned earlier, I did not look into system design earlier, but एक बार you have an interview on your head sitting as like you are not prepared for this, that is when most of your motivation comes from. On any other regular day, I would not put in even half the effort I did for learning system design as I did for the interview. उसके बाद system design के बाद का interview मेरा, I also asked a friend of mine, a senior of mine, to mock interview me for system design, which was very bad. I did a very bad job at it, and it helped me learn how not to do the same mistakes in my actual interview. It also made me very nervous, but that is just a given when you have an interview coming up. Yeah, and so that I had a behavioral interview, which is just HR questions. They say it like it's very easy, but don't ever underestimate an HR interview. Prepare for that as well. The most important part of preparing for interviews for a specific company is looking at interview experiences of other people online, which you can find on LeetCode or the platforms like even Google. Just Google it, Bloomberg interview experience. Yeah, that helped me prepare a lot for my interview. Just looking at how Bloomberg conducts the interview. Don't go into any interview unprepared where you don't even know कि क्या पूछने वाले हैं. I knew in every interview कि क्या पूछने वाले हैं. I had expected this question. So that's how I prepared.
That's really great advice. Now, what do you see as the future of tech industry after seeing the current situation of recession? Which roles are likely to be more in demand and which positions will be replaced?
Well, software engineering is like a very wide field, and it's kind of a moot point to think about what job roles are going to be replaced, because even if a job role is replaced, it will be replaced with another tech concept. For example, just say if we find a very uh, complex AI that can write entire backend software on its own, then the job role will shift to who is going to maintain the AI. That is what is going to create more job opportunities. What I'm trying to say is that software is a very versatile field. If your field suddenly becomes irrelevant, which is not likely to happen in the near future, then you can just shift to another. The important part is that you keep yourself up to track and keep learning. You don't stop the learning process. You don't give your whole life to your job. You don't let it define you.
Okay, that's wonderful. So now we are moving on to the final question from our side. Um, as the saying goes, you have to stay updated in the IT industry to remain a part of it. So how do you plan on updating yourselves now, and how do you plan to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah. So as of now, um, even when just working at your company is going to help you learn a lot about the current state of IT and how things are moving ahead from here. It helps you learn about how a team works, how a company works on a larger scale. And apart from that, you can learn about related things to your work. For example, OCaml is I think a very it's a well established language actually, and it has been in use for decades. But I think the importance of OCaml is going to increase. Another reason for why I chose the team. It will help me learn about OCaml, and I've started learning about OCaml even though it's not a part of my job right now. And apart from that, I follow some subreddits on Reddit about computer science, programming. I read blogs from time to time, not much, but I do read about the current advancements. Um, I wouldn't say I'm doing a lot to stay ahead of the curve right now, but just keep learning is whenever you can. Of course, you can't dedicate your whole life to just learning computer science. 8 घंटे जॉब करके आ रहे हो, उसके बाद मन नहीं होने वाला और पढ़ने का. But whenever you feel like it, don't like force yourself.
Yes, so now we are open for any kind of doubts that our audience is having from us. Guys,
Yeah. I don't think I'm very qualified to speak for it, but I would just say try not to think about things that are not in your control. You just do things that are in your control. That is applying to places, learning about tech, learning bettering your interview game, so that when the opportunity comes, you are prepared for it.
Okay, so thank you, Khadija. As now we are reaching to the end, if anyone has any doubt, they can unmute themselves or ask in the chat session.
we have a question in the chat that does extra co-curriculars play any role while getting shortlisted in any regulated company or even while applying for masters abroad? We are told about it, but then mostly hear about coding rounds to be important.
Yeah, I would say thinking about how extracurriculars help you in getting shortlisted is not the right approach to think about it. It is another trap I fell into while trying to join clubs. कि club join करूंगी, certificate मिलेगा, which I would be able to use for my interviews and such. It does not work like that. Companies don't care about it at all, your certificates or your clubs or your co-curriculars. What they care about is what you got out of them, how you're able to show how your skills are translated. For example, um, when I was applying for masters, मेरा DSC का experience, I was able to show it as how I am a community building person, how I can mentor people and speak in front of an audience. Those are the kind of it helps you. Those are the kind of skills that you show, and not the कि ये मेरा certificate है, ये मैंने club join किया था. That is not going to help you. What is going to help you is your experience and how you can put that. For example, कोई तूने बहुत अच्छा seminar दिया in a club like DSC or CSI or Connect, and you put it on LinkedIn, for example, कि and talk about what you spoke about. Again, substance is important. Just don't put in कि hey, I spoke at this event. No one is going to know what you spoke about. Uh, it's just it's about putting yourself out and experiencing how to handle an event or a club at a larger scale, or just being able to speak in front of people, being able to manage events from the start to finish, like advertise planning events, advertising them, getting people to come in and actually delivering. The delivering is actually the very easiest part. The presenting in front of an audience becomes the easiest part when you have to think about getting to there, just getting to there. So those are the experiences, the co-curriculars that help me a lot in everything in life, in time management, in preparing for interviews, in not being nervous in interviews. And it also helped me meet more people, as I mentioned. And I credit most of my achievements to the people that I met, the seniors that I met in clubs. Um, and also, you mostly hear that coding rounds are important. Yeah, that is another thing that I feel is very misleading. Coding rounds are important, but they are only important if you have an interview. Uh, for getting an interview, coding rounds are going to be useless unless you are like exceptionally good at it, and you can only be exceptionally good at it if you actually like it. I did not like doing coding rounds at all. I did not even like learning about DSA algorithms, but ताकि ये तो important है, ये करना पड़ेगा. But there are also other things equally important, if not more. That is your development and your experience in internships and such. This brings me to another point. Summer internships बहुत कम लोग करते हैं in our college. Uh, Even the faculties don't stress about it much, but you don't expect all of your learning to come out of your classroom. Just think about what you can do on your own. और उसमें से summer internship, I would say it should be mandatory. It should have credits, like at least 5 credits in the university. Hey sir, if you're hearing, yeah. Uh,
Yes, sure, we will look into it. And that's my reason that I'm joining this session, right? Because the honest feedback that we can have is through these sessions only. Okay, so thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for your point.
yeah. Yeah, so summer internships are like crazy important in learning about all of those things in a very short span of time. You learn about development. You learn about talking to other people. You have something to put on your resume, and you can work on a real world project. Everything. You don't have to learn anything separately. It's a very good experience that will help you find off campus internships for winter. With I mean semester 8. And why it's important is that it puts you ahead of the game. When you try to find off-campus internships without summer internships in semester 8, much less companies are going to care about your resume, much less than you would if you did a summer internship. That is one reason. Another reason is that you already have some experience interviewing with companies because of the summer internship. You have some experience working in a real world, so that is going to help you talk in interviews better. It's going to help you prepare better. It's going to give you a mindset that you can use in future interviews and applications. It's like a mini game, a mini placement game, which is incredibly valuable. I would say it should be mandatory.
It's a great say. Okay. So now
Yes.
we have two head.
On campus, a lot more companies are coming for summer internship than they did in my time. I think my time there were like 2 to 3 companies, but I'm hearing more from juniors.
So yes, we have two hands raised, Aryan and Nisar. If you have any doubts, you can turn on your mic and you can ask them, or if you're not comfortable.
Hello everyone. I am Aryan. Hello Khadija. My question is that I am from first year and I have been learning C and C++ languages. And while learning from those books, I have read that C++ or C language is used to develop multiple things. But my question is that as I am also knowing how to use C language or C++, but can I know that I can't develop any of those things. So my question is that what concepts like data structure or database management, etc., is needed to get into real life coding?
Yeah, that is that is a very so I say something slightly controversial, but C and C++ are not the best languages to learn as a beginner developer. It's not even controversial at this point because it is a widely accepted fact that C and C++ should not be taught to beginners. It just tends to confuse them more. But we are going slightly off topic. So C++ are mostly used for system design, um, really complex algorithms need that can need every ounce of speed that you can give it. So C is a highly efficient language. Speaking of time, but those are not really concepts that beginners care about. Beginners don't care about how fastly their website runs, and which is why we fail to do development with C++ or C because it is not targeted to building web apps or even um, learning about data structures. Really, I would say C++ is not the best language to use for competitive coding. I would say or data structures. More on that later. So for what you need to do for real world is I would say start building projects. uh, if not C++, then learn Python. I would say Python is a very good language at your point to learn as a beginner and build a web app with it or JavaScript or Java, whatever. So when you build a project, you're not going to know about databases at that point, but projects require databases. So you will have to learn about databases. So that is how a project teaches you stuff is it forces you to learn about things that you don't know about, otherwise the project काम नहीं करेगा. So that is your first something that you built that is close to the real world. After that, you can do more projects and you can see internship opportunities if people are hiring for internships, even if it's not particularly the time of the year for an internship. Even just giving out interviews is important, eh, just as important as the actual internship itself too. And and open source. Open source is another step that you take after you have some basic knowledge. For example, just having done a project is good enough for looking into open source. It's going to make you realize how inept you are, and then you're going to force yourself to learn more because you're going to think that you don't know anything. Speaking from personal experience.
Okay, so
Thank you, ma'am.
just a second. I wanted to add a point here. Aryan, if you are really interested in games, in game development, then most of the game developers use C++ to create high performance games. So if that fascinates you, focus there and you will get the feel of real world C++ implementation.
Yeah, that's a very good point. If you want to do something with C++, you think about what C++ is good for. As he said, C++ is good for game development. So you start doing looking into that if you want to learn C++, and you don't try to do something that C++ was not designed to do.
Basically, I was trying to say that I am knowing this much of language and I am not able to develop anything because my I don't have those all concept. Right now, we are doing hackerranks and we are just giving some numerical input or string input, and we are expected to give some output through our code, which is most probably not out there. Means it is not needed in the real life.
Correct, correct. And yeah, I totally understand me. Uh, for that, there are a lot of tutorials that you can find online on how to build projects. Very even very small projects like just displaying hello world on your browser. you will find tutorials. If you just Google search C++ project tutorial YouTube, you are going to find tons of videos on that, and you're going to find other resources that will help you make projects with the amount of knowledge that you have. And if you do not have knowledge, they they are they will be able to teach. There are tutorials that will be able to teach you. For example, I found when I was learning about building projects, uh, I found this one tutorial I think it was a to-do list app, and it was connected to databases. At that point, I really did not know what the guy was doing, but I was just copying it, and things just started working. But then I was like, "ये मुझे नहीं पता ये कैसे हुआ." So I would Google that, what this is about, what this specific term is. For example, what does it mean to insert data through a database connection? What is a database connector? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
correctly said.
Yeah.
Also,
You you don't need to know everything before trying to make a project. You can do stuff that you have zero clue about, but then the important is to find out later. If you don't know something, you don't just accept.
also add a point here.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, so with the knowledge you have, Aryan, try building a basic console app with C++. It will give you power like whenever you are approaching a cafe. It's robot is acknowledging you. It's built using C++. So try building that. It will give you a kick and then move further towards it. So this way, I think you will get the knowledge that no, you have the knowledge and you are trying to implement it and you are continuing further. And then you will realize that is really C++ fascinating you or not.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Bash.
First semester in college, Hariom sir also really stressed about the importance of using your knowledge to build projects. So he did not even talk about like trying to learn things that are not that you don't know about. He actually thought that things can be done very simply, even with the knowledge that you have. He gave us an idea of building a snake game in C++ or C. It also was very interesting. I never actually ended up implementing that one, but I regret not doing that. So we also, I think I tend to think so much about things that are out of my scope that I forget to think about the knowledge that I already have. So HAPs are really put importance on the fact that there is a lot that you can do even with your current knowledge. For example, just building a snake game with C++, the snake extensia game, is a simple concept, but that is also something that you're going to learn about a lot from, like how to work with the sleep function, or how to animate output on the terminal, graphics in C++. Yeah.
Okay, and we had another doubt from Nusar. So Nusar, if you can speak up.
Yeah, yeah. Hello, ma'am. Actually, I want to know your views in this changing trends. Like everybody's talking about AI, ML, but I want to know something about something different, like the field of cybersecurity and especially in that uh, immediate response teams and red teams. What are your views about? Like, you are at Bloomberg, so you too need to deal with that attacks and those all things like loopholes or bugs.
Well, yeah, actually, of course, a lot of teams work here on fraud detection, not just in cybersecurity, but also in financial transactions. Uh, we have to work on detecting fraud, but it's not really a part of my day-to-day work. There are teams specifically designed for that. But coming back to your question, I don't really know much about cybersecurity, to be honest. But if you learn about it, if you actually like doing it and are able to build projects with it, then there's no loss in that. You don't have to really think about what you are going to learn. You just do it, and then uh, yeah. My point is that cybersecurity or ML or AI, whatever you want to learn, it's not going to be useless. It's going to be us 2 steps back. Everything is going to be 1 step ahead, if not 10 steps ahead. if you end up liking it, you can build projects on it or contribute to open source software that is based around cybersecurity. I also found a startup on LinkedIn a while ago that was working on some cybersecurity stuff. But as I was not interested,
Thank you.
yeah. If you can find the opportunity to build projects with it or just put yourself out there with whatever you are learning, that's very good. That's already a good reason to learn it.
Okay, so if we don't have any more doubts from the audience, uh, yeah, so Khadija, you mentioned about books for system design. So if you can
Yeah.
share those books.
Yeah, before I even share that, remember I talked about the point after learning a lot of when I found passion. That was through reading this book. I'm just going to type that out. So, structure and interpretation of computer programs. If I could choose one book that I could make every student read, that that would be this book. I feel like this should be required reading for all developers everywhere, no matter what point of skills they are at. Especially for students that are in second year, I would say this book is incredibly useful. It's like the Bible of computer programming for me. Yeah, it's that good. I credit all of my achievements to this book and this book alone. Everything that happened in my career, the good things happened after I read this book, which was right around the end of third year. And why it's good is that it starts from the very basics of computer programming and quickly moves into advanced concepts in a way that you don't feel like ये बहुत advanced हो गया है, ये बहुत आगे चला गया है. By the end of the book, you're building interpreters for a language, and you feel like ये तो बहुत easy है. And that kind of confidence and teaching methodology in a book, I have not seen in any other book anywhere. If there was one book that just one book that you would read in your entire 4 years of college, it would be this book. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this knowledge with us. So,
Highly recommend.
sure.
There's cooking system design. So I found a lot of interesting project ideas from this book, and they're not just talking about project ideas, but also how you would go about implementing them. So that's very interesting. It could send you into looking for more similar ideas. That is a good point to start. And designing the uh, applications. Uh, this book I would recommend to third year students, third, fourth year students who are currently working on their SDE projects, definitely. It's very insightful and will definitely help you in system design interviews.
Okay, so thank you, Khadija ma'am. After having such an amazing question answer session, I would like to thank you on behalf of the whole CSI team for being with us and sparing your time with us. Furthermore, I would like to thank all attendees here out there to make this event a huge success. I would request you all to please fill the feedback form. Link is given in the description, or you can scan the QR code as well. And for further queries, you can reach out to us in the CSI DDU email ID or join our Discord server, or else you can follow us on the Instagram as well. Thank you so much, Khadija ma'am, for being with us.
This is really few clubbers or participants if you haven't about this. Feel free to reach out to me on the. I'm giving my email address.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And as this is a season of an online series of an online event, we hope to see with same excitement to all of you in the third episode also, which will be on the 1st April by Nitin Jha, who will be guiding us on the bridging between tech to MBA. So let's meet there. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Also, if you guys have any feedback I would be glad to hear.
So this event was totally a blast. We got a lot of good advices and knowledge from you, and thank you so much for sharing those. And we have the access to feedback form, so we'll be sharing the feedback form too, so that you can know the views of the audience that we just had. From my side, this event was a great one. Thank you so much.
Uh, Also, I would like to add, I really like the frank discussion with you. So again, thank you for sparing your time.
Sir, would you have any feedback for me?
Oh, it was a nice learning for me as well, right? And I can say that due to specifically Corona, right, we had less interactions during those
Yeah,
sessions, right? But
yeah.
your growth and specifically the your batchmates growth is amazing, right? That we are observing or seeing your growth from the LinkedIn and other platforms.
That's pretty controversial because we were at home.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely. Because being at home, these guys already knew what they wanted to do, and they got a big
yes,
vacation in between, so they were able to pursue what they were actually interested in. And
yes, correct.
this is what.
So the only important thing is that you need to find out what you like and what you have passion for, because that drives you for your entire life. And that is rightly mentioned and stressed by Khadija many times. So thank you very much. Okay. And keep growing. And I hope that we'll be in connection, right? Through these kind of events. Thank you. And thank you, CSI, for organizing and finding out Khadija, right? Choosing her rightly for this kind of session. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. So I would request the audience that the session is officially over and you guys can be.
Still, people are requesting for joining.